I thought I had a happy marriage, then found my husband's flash drive and my entire life shattered. I don't even know where to begin. 2 months ago, I was living what I thought was a perfectly normal life. Happy marriage, beautiful home in the suburbs, planning for children next year with my husband of 5 years, Mark. We met in college, dated for 3 years before getting married, and everything seemed perfect. He was attentive, loving, ambitious. I felt lucky. I need to write this all down just to process what's happened. Maybe someone out there has gone through something similar and can tell me if I'm making the right decisions. Because right now, I feel like I'm drowning. It started with something so innocuous. Mark had left his laptop bag at home when he rushed out to catch his flight for a business trip. I texted him about it, and he asked if I could ship the laptop to his hotel. When I was gathering everything, a small flash drive fell out of the side pocket. It wasn't labeled or anything, just a basic black USB drive. I set it aside to include with the laptop. But something about it bothered me. Mark is meticulous about his work. He labels everything. His desk drawers at home are organized with those little label maker stickers. Even the cables in our entertainment center are labeled and zip-tied. An unlabeled flash drive seemed out of character. I wish I had just put it in the box and shipped it. I wish I had never plugged it into my computer. But I did. At first, it seemed like a collection of random files. Nothing alarming. Some photos from vacations we'd taken, some work documents. But there was a folder labeled simply E that caught my attention. When I opened it, I found hundreds of screenshots of text messages. Between my husband and someone named Emily. My stomach dropped immediately. I don't know anyone named Emily in Mark's life. Not a coworker, not a friend, no one he'd ever mentioned. The messages went back 3 years. 3 years. Starting barely 2 years after we were married. I couldn't stop reading, even as I felt physically ill. They were explicit. Romantic. They made plans to meet in hotel rooms when he was supposedly working late. There were messages about how much they missed each other. About how they wished things could be different. I sat there in our home office, hand trembling on the mouse, reading through years of my husband's secret life. There were photos, too. Of a woman I'd never seen before. Beautiful, younger than me. Pictures of them together, smiling at the camera like any normal couple. There was even one of them in front of a Christmas tree. I recognized the sweater Mark was wearing. I had given it to him that Christmas. I think I had some kind of breakdown after that. I remember throwing up in the bathroom. I remember sitting on the kitchen floor sobbing until my throat hurt. I remember calling my sister and barely being able to speak through the tears. He's been cheating on me, was all I could say at first. For years. My sister came over immediately. She lives about 30 minutes away, but it felt like hours waiting for her. I just sat on the couch, staring at nothing, the flash drive clutched in my hand like evidence at a crime scene. When she arrived, I showed her some of the messages. Not the explicit ones, but enough to confirm what was happening. That fucking asshole, she kept saying. That absolute piece of garbage. I couldn't even be angry yet. I was just in shock. This wasn't possible. Not Mark. Not my Mark who kissed me goodbye that morning and told me he loved me. Not the man who had spent last weekend looking at paint swatches for the nursery we planned to set up next year. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I should confront him immediately or wait until he got home. My sister was firmly in the call him right now and burn his life to the ground camp. But I couldn't. I needed time to process. I copied all the files to my computer and put the flash drive back in his laptop bag. I shipped it as if nothing had changed. As if my entire world hadn't just exploded. That night was the longest of my life. I kept reading the messages, torturing myself with the details of their relationship. They had inside jokes. Pet names for each other. He called her M and she called him M. They talked about books they were reading, shows they watched together. It wasn't just sex. It was a relationship. A real, full relationship happening alongside our marriage. I didn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I called in sick to work the next day, and the day after that. My sister stayed with me, bringing me food I couldn't touch, making sure I showered and changed clothes even when all I wanted was to disappear into my bed. 3 days later, I found something worse. A subfolder I had missed initially, labeled Future. Inside were emails between Mark and Emily discussing their future together. Plans. He was planning to leave me. They had picked out cities where they might move together. They had talked about children. They had a timeline. According to their messages, he was going to ask for a divorce on our anniversary next month. What broke me completely was finding a document where he drafted what he would say to me. How he'd frame it as growing apart. How he'd make it seem mutual. How he would protect her existence from me completely because it would just cause unnecessary pain. He was going to lie to me until the very end. I threw my laptop across the room. I screamed until my voice gave out. My sister found me curled in a ball on the floor, hyperventilating. That's when anger finally pushed through the shock. White-hot, all-consuming rage. This man had stolen 5 years of my life. He had looked me in the eyes every day and lied. He had made love to me, talked about having children with me, all while building a parallel life with another woman. And he was going to discard me like I meant nothing. I spent the next day planning. Mark would be home in 2 days. I needed to figure out exactly how I wanted to confront him. My sister wanted me to take everything while he was gone, clean out our bank accounts, take anything valuable, and disappear. Part of me was tempted. But I knew that wasn't who I was. I wanted the truth. I wanted to see his face when he realized I knew. I texted him normally those 2 days. Miss you. How's the conference? Acting like the oblivious wife he thought I was. Each message was like swallowing glass. Each response from him, each casual love you too made me want to vomit. Who was this stranger I had married? Finally, the day came. I heard his key in the door. I was sitting at the kitchen table, the evidence printed out and arranged in a folder. Just a small sample, enough to make it clear I knew everything. Hey, babe. He called out, wheeling his suitcase in. I'm home. I didn't answer. He walked into the kitchen and his smile faltered when he saw my face. What's wrong? He asked, and I could already see him shifting into damage control mode. The slight narrowing of his eyes, the cautious tone. I wondered how many times he'd done this, assessed a situation to see if his secret was in danger. Sit down, Mark. My voice was steadier than I expected. He sat across from me, frowning now. You're scaring me, Jess. What's going on? I slid the folder across the table. I found your flash drive when I was packing your laptop. All the color drained from his face. Just gone, instantly. His mouth opened but no sound came out. 3 years, I said, my voice finally breaking. 3 fucking years, Mark. He closed his eyes. Jess, I can explain. Explain? Explain? I stood up so fast my chair fell backward with a crash. Explain what? How you've been fucking another woman for most of our marriage. How you were planning to leave me next month. On our anniversary? He flinched at each accusation. You weren't supposed to find out like this. Something in me snapped at those words. Is that seriously what you're concerned about right now? The timing? You've been living a double life, and you're upset about the timing? I didn't want to hurt you, he said, and he had the audacity to look pained. I laughed, a horrible sound that didn't feel like it came from me. Well, mission fucking accomplished, Mark. I'm not hurt at all. I'm destroyed. The confrontation lasted hours. He admitted everything, piece by painful piece. They met at a work conference. She was from the Chicago office. The affair started as just physical but became emotional. He fell in love with her. He couldn't find a way to end our marriage without hurting me, so he kept putting it off. He never intended for it to go on so long. He still cared about me, but they connected on a different level. Every justification, every excuse made me hate him more. He cried, actually cried, talking about how confused he'd been, how trapped he felt. How sorry he was that I found out this way. I never wanted to hurt you, he kept saying. You planned exactly how you were going to hurt me, I responded. I read your script, remember? The one where you pretend we're just growing apart? Where you lie to make yourself feel better. That night I stayed at my sister's. I couldn't bear to be in the same house as him. He begged me to stay, to talk more, to consider counseling. Counseling. As if this was a communication issue that could be fixed with a therapist and some honest conversation. There's no coming back from this, I told him as I packed an overnight bag. We're done. The next few days were a blur. I consulted a divorce attorney. I told my parents, his parents. Everyone was shocked. Mark had always been such a good husband. That's what everyone said about him. Even his mother, who called me sobbing, couldn't believe it. There must be some mistake, she kept saying. Mark wouldn't do this. But there was no mistake. And slowly, as word spread, more details emerged. A mutual friend finally admitted she had seen Mark with another woman at a restaurant in another city where she was visiting her sister. She had convinced herself it was a work colleague because Mark would never cheat. Another friend said he had seemed overly friendly with a woman at last year's Christmas party, but never thought anything of it. All these people who had suspected something but said nothing. All these moments where his facade had slipped, but everyone, including me, had been too trusting to notice. A week after the confrontation, I returned to our house to gather more of my things. Mark wasn't supposed to be there. He had told me he would be at work, but his car was in the driveway. I almost turned around, but this was still legally my home. I wasn't going to be kept away. I used my key and walked in to find Mark and Emily sitting at our kitchen table. In our home. The home we had bought together. The home where we had talked about raising children. I froze in the entryway, key still in hand. She froze too, a coffee mug halfway to her lips. She looked exactly like her pictures, pretty in that effortless way, younger than me by at least 5 years. Mark jumped up from his chair like it had electrocuted him. "Jess. You said you were coming tomorrow." "Get her out of my house," I said, my voice so low it was almost a whisper. "Jess, this isn't what." "Get her out of my house." I screamed at this time, and something on my face must have terrified both of them because Emily immediately stood up, grabbing her purse. "I should go," she murmured to Mark. "No, wait, Em," he caught himself using her pet name and looked at me with panic. "Oh, don't stop on my account," I said, voice dripping with venom. An Em, right? That's what you call each other?" Emily looked confused, then horrified as she realized I had read their private messages. Their intimate exchanges. I knew her in ways she had never consented to being known by me. "I'm so sorry," she whispered as she moved toward the door. Something in me broke open again. Did you know he was planning our family? Did you know we were setting up a nursery next year? Did he tell you that part, Emily? Or did he tell you I was some horrible shrew he couldn't wait to leave? She looked at Mark, shock evident on her face. "You said you hadn't been intimate in over a year. You said you were already sleeping in separate bedrooms." And there it was. The final betrayal. He had lied to her too. Mark moved toward me, hands raised as if approaching a wild animal. "Jess, please, let me explain." "There's nothing to explain." I screamed. "You're a liar. You've lied to everyone. To me, to her, to our families, our friends." "I couldn't find a way out," he said, his voice breaking. "I love you both in different ways." That was when I slapped him. Hard across the face. I'd never hit anyone before in my life, but I couldn't control the rage that surged through me at those words. Love? He dared to use that word? Emily slipped out the door during the chaos that followed. Mark and I continued screaming at each other. I threw a vase. He pleaded. I called him every vile name I could think of. He cried. I told him I wanted him to die. He said he had contemplated suicide over the guilt. When I finally left, shaking and hoarse, I had forgotten the belongings I came for. All I knew was that I needed to escape. That night, curled up on my sister's pull-out couch, I reached a new low. I found myself looking up Emily's social media. I had her last name from the email addresses in the future folder. It wasn't hard to find her. I spent hours scrolling through her life. Her vacations. Her friends. Her family. I found posts from dates that corresponded with weekends Mark had been away for work. I found a photo of a necklace he had given her for her birthday, a day when he had come home late to me, claiming a work dinner had run long. I was torturing myself, but I couldn't stop. Who was this woman he had chosen over me? What did she have that I didn't? Her life looked ordinary. Normal. Nothing special. Except she had the love of the man I thought was mine. I hit rock bottom when I found myself drafting a message to her. I wanted to tell her everything. How he had lied to her too. How he had been planning our family while planning a future with her. I wanted to hurt her like I was hurting. My finger hovered over the send button for what felt like hours. But in the end, I deleted it. She wasn't the one who had made vows to me. She wasn't the one I had trusted with my life, my future, my heart. Her betrayal wasn't against me. It was Mark who had betrayed us both. That realization was the first step in my healing. As twisted as it sounds, knowing he had lied to her too made me feel less defective. This wasn't about me lacking something. It wasn't about her being better. It was about Mark being a fundamentally dishonest person. 2 weeks after discovering the flash drive, I filed for divorce. Mark begged for couples counseling right up until I served him papers. Then his tone changed. Suddenly it was about finances. About how splitting everything would ruin us both. About how we should consider a trial separation instead. But I had seen his plans. I knew he had been preparing to leave me anyway. I knew he had consulted with a divorce attorney months ago, it was in the emails. He had been strategizing how to protect his assets. He had been calculating exactly what he would owe me under state law. During a meeting with both our lawyers present, I slid copies of those emails across the table. The blood drained from his face for the second time since this nightmare began. You want to talk about finances, Mark? Let's talk about the money you moved into your personal account in March. Let's talk about the consultation you had with a divorce attorney in January. Let's talk about how you planned to claim our marriage was over in practice long before you filed. My attorney, a shark in a pencil skirt named Diane, smiled coldly. My client is prepared to be very reasonable, considering the circumstances. But if you prefer, we can certainly let a judge review these materials. Mark's attorney, a man who had looked at me with barely disguised condescension until that moment, whispered something urgently to Mark. The meeting ended shortly after, with promises to draft a fair settlement agreement. That night, Mark called me, drunk. I should have ignored it, but some masochistic part of me needed to hear what he had to say. I fucked up, he slurred. I fucked up so bad, Jess. Yes, you did. She left me. Emily left me. Said she couldn't trust me after what she learned. Said if I could lie to my wife for 3 years, I could lie to her too. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction. Not schadenfreude. Nothing. That sounds like a personal problem, Mark. I lost everything, he said, his voice breaking. Everything I care about. I don't know who I am anymore. Welcome to the club, I said, and hung up. Update, it's been 6 weeks since Discovery Day. The divorce is progressing. Mark agreed to a settlement that's more than fair to me, the house, half of all our accounts, and a portion of his retirement. His parents have reached out, expressing their horror at what he did and offering their continued love and support to me. I thanked them but explained I needed a clean break from anything connected to him. I'm still staying with my sister, but I'll be moving back into the house next week. Mark has moved out. I'm going to sell it, too many memories, but I need somewhere to live while I figure out my next steps. Friends keep telling me I'm handling this so well, but they don't see me at night when I still can't sleep. They don't know that I've lost 15 pounds because food tastes like ash. They don't see me Googling Emily at 3 a.m., still trying to understand what was so special about her. But I am getting better. The panic attacks are less frequent. I've started therapy. I'm planning a trip to Europe next month, something Mark always vetoed because he didn't see the appeal. Small victories. The hardest part has been mourning not just my marriage, but my future. We had everything planned. The children we would have. The places we would travel when we retired. The grandchildren we would spoil. All of it, gone. I'm 34. Starting over feels impossible some days. But then I think about what my life would be if I hadn't found that flash drive. If he had gone through with his plan to leave me, making me think we had just grown apart. Or worse, if he had stayed with me out of guilt, continuing to see her on the side, maybe for years more. How much more time would I have lost? In a twisted way, finding that flash drive was a gift. A painful, devastating gift that saved me from an even worse fate, living a lie. Last night, I had a moment that felt like a turning point. I was going through old photos, a torturous activity I can't seem to stop, when I found one from our honeymoon. We were on a beach in Hawaii, sunrise, both smiling so wide our faces might split. I've looked at this photo 100 times since D-Day, trying to see some sign, some clue that he would betray me so completely. But last night, I didn't look at him. I looked at me. At my face. At my joy. At the woman who loved so completely, so trustingly. And instead of feeling anger or shame, I felt proud. Proud that I am capable of that kind of love. Proud that despite everything, I haven't let this destroy my capacity for joy. Mark took many things from me. My trust. My plans. Years of my life. But he doesn't get to take that woman in the photo. She's still here, beneath the pain. And someday, she'll smile like that again. Yesterday I received an email from Emily. My first instinct was to delete it unread, but curiosity won out. It was short. She apologized again. She explained that Mark had told her I knew about their relationship and had accepted it, that we had an understanding. She said she ended things permanently after learning the truth and was in therapy trying to understand how she could have believed his lies for so long. The final line stayed with me: we both deserved better than to love someone who couldn't be honest, even with himself. I didn't respond. I don't think I ever will. But for the first time, I felt something like solidarity with this stranger who had unknowingly shared my husband. We were both victims of the same man's cowardice. Today, I packed up the last of my old life. Wedding album, cards, gifts, all boxed away in the attic, not destroyed, just stored. Part of my history, but not my present. Not my future. Am I still angry? Yes. Do I still have moments where I fantasize about burning all his belongings in the front yard? Absolutely. Do I still wake up reaching for him sometimes, in that half second before remembrance crashes over me? God, yes. But those moments are getting fewer. The stretches of okay are getting longer. I'm learning who I am without him, and she's stronger than I expected. If you've read this far, thank you. Writing it all down has helped me process in a way nothing else has. If you're going through something similar, know that you're not alone. The pain is excruciating, but it's not eternal. At least, that's what I keep telling myself. I don't know what's next for me. A new city, maybe. A new career. Definitely a new perspective on trust and love. But for the first time in 2 months, next doesn't terrify me. It intrigues me. My therapist said something last week that's become a sort of mantra: you're not starting over. You're starting from experience. So that's what I'm doing. Starting from experience. One day at a time. Edit, thank you for all the supportive comments. To address some common questions. 1. No, we did not have children, thankfully. We were planning to start trying next year. 2. Yes, Mark and Emily worked for the same company, different offices. No, I didn't report them to HR. That felt petty, and I just wanted a clean break. 3. Several people have asked if there were signs I missed. Looking back, there were small things: unexplained absences, increased password protection on his devices, emotional distance that would appear and then vanish. But nothing that screamed affair. He was very, very careful. And I was very, very trusting. 4. For those asking if I'll ever trust again, I honestly don't know. Right now, the thought of being vulnerable with someone new seems impossible. But I'm trying to remember that Mark's choices reflect on his character, not on the institution of marriage or on men in general. One person's betrayal doesn't mean everyone will betray you. 5. The most common advice I've received is to go completely no contact with Mark once the divorce is final. That's absolutely the plan. Once there's nothing left to sign, nothing left to negotiate, he's dead to me. Thank you again for letting me share my story. Knowing there are people out there who understand, who have survived similar betrayals, makes me feel less alone in this. For the first time in months, I'm actually looking forward to tomorrow. It's a small victory, but I'll take it.